This is Sean O'Malley, and you're watching Full-Time MMA. Don't be a bagel biting, bagel bitch boy, bagel bitch back.
Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And UFC superstar Nate Diaz has came a long way from trading jiu-jitsu lessons for some lunchtime carne asada, and now he's one of the highest paid athletes in the UFC. With that second round submission over Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz essentially hit the lottery. But not only did he get the second round submission win over Conor McGregor wanted an immediate rematch, so Nate Diaz was granted a second Conor McGregor payday, or red panty night as we like to call it. Now, with that being said, Nate Diaz since then has been on the sidelines for about 2 years, but he was recently scheduled to face Dustin Poirier. The fight was announced, and both fighters, Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier, showed up to the UFC 25th anniversary press conference, and Nate Diaz was of course the biggest star in attendance. Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov had yet to be announced, but that was where the fight was announced. Now, it was our first time seeing Nate Diaz back in a while. He was scheduled to fight Dustin Poirier. He showed up a little late. He said it was the UFC's fault, yada yada. It doesn't really matter. He showed up a little late, but he was there. But not for long, because as soon as the press conference was getting wrapped up, Dana White said, "All right, guys, everyone done? I got one more thing to show you guys." And he played the promo for Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. The wait is over. The fight was announced, but halfway through the promo, Nate Diaz felt disrespected, got up and stormed off, walked out of the building midway through the McGregor versus Khabib promo. Clearly, he didn't like the fact that the UFC seemed to be using him to announce this huge fight, because he definitely was the biggest fighter at that press conference, drawing a lot of attention to it, you could imagine, with his name. And so the UFC then used that opportunity, announced McGregor versus Khabib, which is the fight the fans really want to see, likely going to be the biggest fight of all time. But Nate Diaz, one of Conor McGregor and Khabib's rivals, but probably Conor McGregor's biggest rival, he wasn't too happy with the UFC at that point, so he walked out. And after he walked out, one of the things that he had to say was that the UFC better start doing more over-promoting and less under-promoting. I guess he feels like the UFC hasn't been promoting him, or maybe even some others, the fighters, the right way. And so that pissed him off at the press conference enough to get him to stand up and walk off. Now, with all of that being said and that stage being set, UFC ring announcer Bruce Buffer has came out, got caught up by TMZ, and he had a message for Nate Diaz. He was a little blunt. I can't actually play his words because it's a TMZ interview and we're not trying to get copyright strikes. We're already dealing with the shadow ban. But essentially, Bruce Buffer said Nate Diaz should stop complaining and be bowing down to Dana White, since he's actually made over $7 million in that fight with Conor McGregor. He's saying, "Yo, Nate, pretty much you came a long way from eating carne asada at lunchtime for jiu-jitsu lessons. Now you're one of the richest athletes in the UFC. Instead of throwing fits at the press conference and walking out, maybe you should be a little more appreciative to your bosses." But this is his exact words. Bruce Buffer said, "Nate, I heard you made $7 or more million in your last fight. I don't want to hear you complaining about being under-promoted by the UFC. You should be thanking the UFC and bowing to Dana White every time you see him. Endeavor CEOs Ari Emanuel and Patrick Whitesell. You got $7 or more million gross before taxes, maybe much more, which I love knowing that you have. You know, it's great knowing Nate Diaz made all that money, for sure." He said, "But please, I don't want to hear any more complaints. Like, there's definitely a lot of other fighters who have not hit the lottery that Nate Diaz hit when he beat Conor McGregor. Hell, fighting Conor McGregor is red panty night. Nate Diaz not only fought Conor McGregor twice, but he has a win over him, and he got that trilogy in the bank. That's going to happen, win or lose. Conor McGregor could lose 2 fights. Nate Diaz could lose 2 fights. They could both win their fights. Either way, everyone wants to see the Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz trilogy at some point. So Nate Diaz even has money in the bank. So I don't know if really I kind of agree with, actually I do agree with Bruce Buffer. I was going to say I don't really know if Nate Diaz should be throwing fits at the press conference like, yo, you guys are playing the McGregor vs. Khabib promo, fuck that, I'm out of here. It's like, alright dog, but hey, it is what it is. That's typical Nate Diaz. And he actually responded to Bruce Buffer. We're going to do this all in the same video. We haven't been doing a lot of these. We do our live shows every weekday now, and we've, between this work and our other job and our shadow ban, we just haven't been able to dedicate as much time to these news videos, unfortunately. But hey, one day, man, we'll build up the full-time MMA Dojo over at Patreon, and we'll be able to dedicate a lot more time to this. So one day, full-time family. But with that being said, we're going to do this all in the same video. Nate Diaz is firing back at Bruce Buffer, who told him to bow down. He says, I bow down to no one. This is what Nate Diaz had to say on Twitter in response to Bruce Buffer's comments telling him to bow down. And by the way, he's telling Nate Diaz to bow down to Dana White. If you recall, Nate Diaz is far from the one to bow down to Dana White. He's one of the only people I know that has an on-camera slap of Dana White. He, of course, got to Stockton slap Dana White that one time on camera leading up to his last Conor McGregor fight, I believe. So Nate Diaz is not down for bowing down. He'd much rather Stockton slap Bruce Buffer, for that matter. Anybody telling him to bow down, I'm sure Nate Diaz would rather Stockton slap. This is what he had to say. Bruce Buffer, what the fuck? Get off the UFC's nuts. You're bowing down right now, telling me to bow down? Fuck that. You keep bowing down. I bow down to no one ever for all the money in the world. He's saying I'm not gonna sell out. Fuck what you talking about, Bruce Buffer, telling me to bow down. If I see some fucked up shit, I'm gonna speak on it. I'm gonna act up. I'm gonna grab my nuts, test my motherfucking gangster, because you do know Nate Diaz represents that thug life. The scrap pack is always with the shits. I mean, they've got into so many fucking crew-on-crew altercations at this point just because they're always DTF. You fuck with one, you fuck with all of them. They ain't the type to bow down or back down. The Diaz crew, this is what you get with them. And he said, Bruce Buffer responded one more time. He said, with all respect, Nate, that's not what I meant by saying the word bow. I meant it as a sign of respect, as in when greeting someone, not a sign of submission. I'd never expect you to do that for anyone. Nate Diaz responded one more time and just said, Bruce Buffer, with all due respect. You know, just letting them know, all right, motherfucker, as long as you're keeping it respectful, respect. But if you're telling me to bow down, you got me figgity fucked up from the Stockton slapper Nate Diaz, the Stockton strangler. We're looking forward to his return against Dustin Poirier, man. That's going to be a great fight. But with that being said, it is 3:27 a.m. right now on Monday morning. We got a live show coming up later on, so make sure you guys tune in. I wish I could tell you to hit the notification bell so you're notified, but that doesn't seem to be ringing these days. So let the full-time family know what you think in the comments, and just check in with the channel. We'll probably be live tomorrow. We'll say 7 p.m. Eastern. I don't have work tomorrow, so we can get back to our normal time. So thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you share it. That's one of the ways to help the channel grow. Now that we are shadow banned, that's going to be our only way. We got to hit the pavement, family. So if you want to see this channel grow, make sure you hit the like button and also share it on social media, in an MMA group, wherever you want to. And if not, hey, it is what it is. Fuck it. We don't need to grow. We got each other. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. We out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOJ.